I had been with Boris Owen for 3 years. All that time, he kept secrets, meeting different women under the guise of blind dates and casual outings. I had my suspicions, but it wasn't until a friend confronted him directly that I learned the truth. "What about Brandon Franklin?" the friend asked. Boris simply shrugged. "We're both guys," he said with a careless smirk. "It's just for fun. Did you really think we'd last a lifetime?" I didn't confront him. I didn't cry or scream. I just posted a photo on my social media, a quiet announcement, a hand in mine, intertwined fingers. No caption. The phone rang almost immediately. "You said we weren't going to go public." Boris's voice trembled with panic. "Only a few close friends even knew. And now? Now everyone knows we're, what, gay." I let the silence stretch for a beat before I spoke. "Take a good look," I said slowly. "Is that your hand?" Because the person in that photo had just posted the same picture across every platform he had. Loud, proud, and unmistakably not Boris Owen. Welcome to He History channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. On Boris Owen's birthday, he sent me a location pin. I took a cab, the present I'd prepared a month ago resting quietly in my pocket. A pair of cufflinks, tiny stars, inlaid with crushed diamonds that shimmered with every shift in the light. Elegant and understated, like the future I'd once envisioned for us. The private room was dimly lit, the chandelier casting lazy, flickering shadows on the walls. Inside, Boris had his arm around a woman. They were laughing. Close. Comfortable. The others raised their glasses to her and called her sis-in-law. I stood frozen at the doorway. My heart tore open, as though something inside had been abruptly ripped away. Soon after, the woman stepped out of the room. I turned aside, facing the wall, waiting for her to leave before quietly returning to the door. I reached for the handle, ready to walk in and ask Boris a simple question. "Who is she?" But before I could enter, I heard someone inside ask, "Boris, you're getting engaged. What about Brandon Franklin?" His voice came casually, like this wasn't even worth thinking about. "We're both guys. It was just for fun. You didn't expect us to go the whole way, did you?" In that moment, a tidal wave of bitterness slammed into me. I couldn't breathe. What else was left to understand? We had been together for 3 years. He'd always insisted that, as men, our relationship could never be made public. People would laugh, he'd said. They wouldn't understand. So only a handful of close friends knew. Lately, though, he'd been acting strange, secretive, taking phone calls behind closed doors, going out more often. I wasn't blind, but I told myself that in love, there must be trust. I decided to wait until after his birthday to talk things out. But now, with just a single sentence, "It was just for fun," he shattered everything I had clung to. My legs went weak. I had to steady myself against the wall just to breathe. Then I turned and walked away from the laughter still echoing behind the door. At the corner outside, I caught a glimpse of that woman again. She was standing beneath the storefront sign, speaking into her phone, eyes scanning the street. Maybe she was looking for me. Maybe not. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. I sent Boris a message. One line. "I'm done." I was crossing an intersection, about to hail a ride, when a sleek motorcycle pulled up in front of me. "Brandon! What a coincidence. Need a lift?" It was George Washington. He was a university student who frequented my cafe near campus. We'd spoken a few times. Enough to recognize each other, to exchange small smiles and small talk. "I'm good," I said politely. "Thanks. I've got a ride coming." But George smiled and said, "You don't look okay. How about a ride to clear your head?" Then he pressed a helmet into my arms before I could refuse. "Come on," he urged with an easy grin. "Brandon, hop on." His youthful energy was almost contagious. Before I realized it, the corners of my lips had curved up ever so slightly. "Don't worry," George laughed. "I won't sell you off or anything." I chuckled softly. And after a moment's hesitation, I put on the helmet and climbed on. George seemed genuinely happy. The aura around him was all warmth and momentum. "Hold on tight," he said. "You can wrap your arms around my waist." "Okay." I answered softly, my hands nervously gripping the sides of the seat instead. The bike started off slow. The night breeze brushed against my skin, soothing, gentle. Gradually, it untangled the chaos inside my mind. Brandon, I'm going to speed up. The engine roared, and the sudden burst of speed startled me into grabbing onto him instinctively. Don't worry, he called over the wind, laughing. Just hold on. His voice wrapped around me like the wind, light, carefree, and strangely comforting. We turned a sharp corner. I clutched him tighter. His warmth radiated through the layers between us. There was a trace of motor oil in the air, mixed with the scent of him. And under the rush of speed and wind, I stopped thinking altogether. George brought the bike to a halt by the riverbank. It was quiet here. No people in sight. Only the streetlights, the occasional chirp of insects, and a dog barking in the distance. Across the river, the city skyline stood tall and glowing, like another world, separated by a strip of dark water. I come here when I need to clear my head, George said, gazing at the lights. Helps me think. I nodded. It's working. I feel lighter. And clearer too. George turned his head. His dark eyes shimmered with something bright and unfiltered, like starlight, sharp and honest. I looked away quickly. That gaze, it was too intense. Too real. I had seen it before. In Boris's eyes. A long, long time ago. What had changed? George inhaled like he was bracing himself for something big. He met my gaze head-on, not flinching. Brandon, can I pursue you? He asked. I like you. I want to be with you. Direct. Brave. I had once been like that too. I took a deep breath and looked into his eyes. There was heat there, but also hesitation, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he blinked. Could I take this step? Could I open myself to someone again? The seconds ticked by. And in George's eyes, I saw the light begin to dim. I'm sorry, he murmured. That was too forward. I asked Aidan Mallison and Carol Harrison. They said you were single. So I thought, maybe, if I just tried, maybe you'd give me a chance. Aidan and Carol were baristas at my cafe. We were close. But I'd never told them about Boris. George stammered, you don't have to say anything right away. I interrupted. Not with the rejection I'd prepared, but something else. Okay. Wait, what? George blinked, completely thrown. Did you just say, okay? He gawked at me, stunned. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face, one that bloomed into sheer joy. It was as if fireworks had exploded behind his eyes. Then he rushed forward and threw his arms around me. Brandon, you said yes. George beamed, practically glowing with joy. Without missing a beat, George Washington pulled out his phone. Brandon, let's take a picture. I want everyone to know you're my boyfriend. His words caught me off guard for a second. Seeing my hesitation, he lowered the phone slowly. His head dropped too, like a child caught doing something wrong. Brandon, I'm sorry. I know we're not like others. If you don't want people to know, I understand. I'll listen. I can keep it a secret. I'll be your secret boyfriend. That wasn't what I meant at all. I realized then, he truly wanted to tell the world. I stared at him for a moment, and in his eyes, I saw a reflection of my younger self. That same hope. That same courage. It's not like you to back down. Weren't we taking a photo? George's eyes lit up instantly, and he eagerly lifted his phone again. Let's take a selfie. Hand in hand. And one with a heart pose. Oh, and you lean back on me, heads together. He snapped photo after photo, beaming like he couldn't contain the joy. Then he handed me the phone. Brandon, pick one. Whichever you like. I scrolled through them slowly, then settled on a photo of our hands clasped together. No faces, just fingers interlaced. But anyone who knew us would know. As I went to return the phone, my swipe accidentally brushed across a hidden folder, an encrypted album. George quickly reached out and grabbed his phone back. Then he hesitated, glancing up at me with a sheepish look. That folder's just ugly selfies of mine. I was afraid you'd see them and change your mind about being with me. I chuckled, not pressing further. A string of notification dings broke the moment. I sent all the photos to you, he said, eyes sparkling. He didn't say it out loud, but it was obvious what he wanted. He hoped I'd post one too. That kind of anticipation, I'd waited 3 years for it. How could I not understand? I'll post it to my story, I said with a small smile. George nodded rapidly like a pecking chick, grinning from ear to ear. Brandon, all my classmates and friends are asking where I found someone like you. They want to go find one too. George scrolled through his messages, laughing hard. His friends were congratulating him, wishing him happiness. And deep in my chest, something warm stirred. A rare sense of quiet contentment. Maybe this was enough. Maybe this was what happiness looked like. For us. That's when Boris Owen called. Probably spam, George said casually, glancing at the caller ID. But his eyes flicked toward me nervously, clearly unsettled. It's my ex, I replied. We just broke up tonight. Oh. I looked at him, steady and deliberate. Do you know who he is? George shook his head. No. I swear. I just figured, someone like you would have admirers. And seems normal. My eyes narrowed in suspicion. And then, my thumb accidentally tapped the screen. The call connected. From the speaker came a familiar voice, angry and sharp. Brandon Franklin. We agreed not to go public. It was just a few close friends before, now everyone knows we're gay. I took a deep breath. Look closely, I said calmly. Which hand in that photo is yours? Also, we're over. And I hung up. A few seconds later, he called again. I moved to decline and block him, but George gently said, Brandon, pick up. If you don't end it clearly, he'll keep bothering you. So I answered. Brandon Franklin, Boris snapped. You staged that photo to provoke me, didn't you? Just because I didn't invite you to my birthday dinner tonight? It was only old friends. His voice rose in pitch, emotionally charged, almost shouting. I instinctively held the phone away from my ear. The volume was loud enough that George heard every word. I set the phone on speaker. Boris Owen, I said evenly, I was at Grand Royal tonight. Congrats on the engagement. There was a beat of silence. Then a rush of denial. No, Brandon, it's not what you think. Let me explain. Brandon, who's with you right now? Where are you? That's none of your business, I replied coolly. Exes don't get to ask. I glanced at the location pin he'd sent earlier and frowned slightly. After his reaction just now, it didn't seem like he was the one who sent it. So who had? It didn't matter anymore. I blocked and deleted Boris Owen's number. When he tried calling me with someone else's phone, I shut mine off entirely. George shifted nervously. Brandon, I didn't mean to interrupt earlier. I was just going to ask if you were hungry. Want to grab something to eat? I usually didn't eat late at night. But after getting that location pin earlier, I'd skipped dinner to rush over to Grand Royal for Boris Owen's birthday. So now, at the mention of food, I realized I was actually starving. I smiled faintly. Okay. George Washington's grin stretched wide again, a little goofy, completely unguarded. And I, without meaning to, found my own lips curving with amusement. He handed me the helmet. I took it without fuss. This time, as soon as I got on the bike, I wrapped my arms around his waist. The ride was smooth. The wind was soft, gentle against my skin, like someone brushing away the chaos inside me. I found myself relaxing, my body naturally leaning into his. It felt like no time at all before we arrived. He brought me to a night market. Under the soft glow of lights, smoke curled from food stalls, mingling with the sizzling aroma of grilled seafood, barbecue, and fried snacks. Laughter and hawking voices rose around us. Brandon, have you ever been here? I've only heard of this place. Well, tonight's your first. Leave it to me. Your only job is to eat. As he said this, his hand casually found mine. I turned to look at him. He immediately looked away, ears reddening fast. It was definitely not casual. I didn't call him out. Instead, I laced my fingers through his and held on. A quiet warmth bloomed in my chest. Even my footsteps felt lighter as we walked. Brandon, this is it, our table. We sat at a small metal table. George did all the ordering, and everything he picked I loved. I gave him a knowing smile. He scratched the back of his head. I asked Aidan Mallison and Carol Harrison for tips. When the food arrived, George immediately set about peeling shrimp. Sometimes he'd lower his head in focus, then glance up to shoot me a bright grin. His movements were clumsy, awkward, but serious. Determined even. It was like he'd made it his mission to defeat the shrimp shells. I couldn't help but laugh, reaching for one myself. But he blocked my hand. "Brandon, I've got this. I'll peel them for you." A few moments later, he proudly presented a very mangled shrimp on my plate. Boris Owen and I both loved shrimp, but he hated peeling them. Said the texture was too sticky, too gross. So it had always been me who peeled. Now, watching George wrestle with the shells, making a mess but refusing to give up, that sweetness spread through me again. By the time he'd finished a whole plate, the shrimp were clean, perfectly peeled. He looked up with a shy smile, obviously waiting for praise. He didn't need to say it. Praise me. Tell me I did good. I smiled. Rapid improvement. Very clean, very neat. "Brandon," he said, eyes gleaming, "there's still a lot I don't know. But I'm a fast learner. I'll do my best to become a 5-star boyfriend." He wiped his hands with a wet napkin as he spoke. I smiled gently. "Let's do our best, together." He looked at me, eyes bright, grin tilting upward again. By the time George dropped me off at my apartment complex, it was already past 11:30. "You sure your dorm doesn't lock you out after a certain time?" I asked, concerned. 10:30. "Then where are you staying tonight?" "Don't worry," he said with a laugh. "I can crash anywhere. There's a hotel nearby, or I'll just curl up at the park." He said it so casually, but the look in his eyes gave him away, helpless, uncertain. Like a stray dog hoping someone might take him in. My heart softened. "Just stay with me tonight." His eyes lit up with surprise, then immediately turned cautious. "Your ex? We didn't live together. He stays in the city. I'm out here, near campus." Boris was at Grand Royal tonight with friends for his birthday. He had work tomorrow. Even if he had the impulse to find me, he wouldn't show up tonight. Besides, he had a new lover. His soon-to-be fiancée was the one celebrating with him now. After our breakup, he probably felt relief more than regret. There was no way he'd come looking for me. Once George parked his bike, we headed upstairs together. I unlocked the door with my fingerprint. George peered over my shoulder, mumbling, "That's way more convenient than punching in a code or using a key." "I'll register your fingerprint too," I said. He lit up like a Christmas tree. "Brandon, why are you so good to me? Someone this good must be mine." He hugged me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder and nuzzling gently. "Cling it. Childish." I chuckled softly and turned on the lights. And froze. On the sofa, sitting stiff and silent, was Boris Owen. His expression was dark, jaw clenched, eyes locked on me and George with barely restrained fury. I dropped my smile immediately, brow furrowing just slightly. I spoke evenly. "Boris Owen, we've broken up. Please leave." His fists were clenched at his sides, shoulders rigid. His eyes blazed. George reached for my hand quietly. I felt the tension in his fingers. I interlocked mine with his, calmly looking Boris in the eye. "You broke up with me for him?" Boris hissed, voice trembling with rage. "You brought him here? What the hell are you two planning to do?" His voice dripped with anger, and something else. Exhaustion. "But so what?" I inhaled deeply. "You cheated first. You're getting engaged. So focus on that, your fiancé and your future marriage." "Brandon Franklin, are you jealous?" Boris snapped. "The engagement wasn't my choice, my parents forced it. We've been together 3 years. Do you think I can just throw that away?" He stepped toward me. One step at a time. Closer, closer. George Washington tightened his grip on my hand and stepped in front of me. I gave his arm a gentle pat, then stepped out from behind him, offering him a quiet, reassuring look. He returned it, soft and steady. And somehow, that gaze made me feel steadier too. Boris Owen let out a cold laugh. "You say I cheated, aren't you doing the same?" Don't try to tell me you two just got together tonight. I owed him no explanation. I raised a hand and pointed toward the door, my voice flat. Leave. Boris scoffed again. Your new boyfriend's a college kid, isn't he? How long do you think this'll last? Will it survive past graduation? George gave a low chuckle, dry, with the faintest edge of mockery. At least right now, I am Brandon's official boyfriend. And I should thank Mr. X, since you're getting engaged. Congrats. He dragged out the words Mr. X, sharp and deliberate. The air crackled. It felt like one wrong breath and someone would throw a punch. I stepped slightly in front of George and repeated, leave. I shoved Boris out the door, locked it from the inside, and yanked the batteries from the keypad for good measure. Before I could say a word, George pulled me into a tight hug. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, rubbing his cheek against my skin like a sulky puppy. I returned the hug, murmuring, "What's wrong?" He pulled back, visibly uneasy. "I didn't know you'd just broken up today." My breath caught. Did he regret it? "I really like you," he said quickly, eyes wide. "I want to be with you. Even if you're only with me because you just broke up, or if you're trying to get back at your ex, I don't care." Well, I blinked. "So, you're not regretting the confession?" "Of course not." George blurted out. "Honestly? I'm thrilled I confessed tonight. If I'd said it earlier, you would have rejected me because you had a boyfriend. If I'd waited longer, someone else might have snatched you up." I burst out laughing. Just like that, the heavy tension left behind by Boris dissolved completely. Still, my new boyfriend was clearly a little insecure. I needed to affirm him, give him the reassurance he deserved. I smiled. This is fate. Perfect timing. George looked at me, eyes shining, a sheen of tears beginning to gather. I froze, mentally scrambling for something comforting to say. Then he lunged forward again, this time lifting me right off the ground in a full-bodied hug. "Brandon, I'm so happy." His laughter was loud, uncontainable. "Giddy. Screw it. Let him be." When he finally set me down, he was breathing hard, face flushed bright red. "Brandon, if your ex ever tries to come back, don't pick him, okay? Pick me." "Okay," I said gently, drawing out the syllables. My tone softened instinctively, laced with something warm and quiet, just for him. I grabbed a new toothbrush and towel for George and told him to go wash up first. Then I headed to the guest room and made the bed before settling into the living room to check my phone. After posting that story earlier, I had a flood of notifications. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and tapped the newest one. Heartthrob officially taken, loudly crying face, guess I never had a shot. Ugh, why'd I have to be the wrong gender dog face? Congrats Brandon Franklin. A high school classmate. She'd added a cute sticker to her message too. I couldn't help but smile. After replying, I opened the second message. "Bro, whoever you love, we've got your back. Bring him out sometime, let's all hang." One by one, I read through the messages. There were so many blessings, far more than doubts. "Brandon, I'm done," George called. I looked up. He stepped out of the bathroom wearing my bathrobe, hair still wet and dripping. I put my phone down and grabbed a dry towel to help him. He stared at me. "Brandon, were you crying?" "Who made you sad?" "No one. I'm just happy." I was looking through my messages. Almost everyone left us well wishes. George chuckled. "Brandon, you're way too easy to move. Didn't anyone congratulate you before?" He said it casually, joking. But it struck something inside me. I thought about the past 3 years. The secrecy. The hiding. No. They didn't know I was dating anyone. What? Why not? He paused, frowning, concern filling his eyes. "You had it rough, didn't you?" "I wouldn't call it rough. I just couldn't tell anyone I had a boyfriend." "Brandon, from now on, let's show off our love. Out in the open." When I came out of the shower, I found George already fast asleep on my bed. He'd even brought the pillow over from the guest room. His features were relaxed, breathing steady. Peaceful. And in that stillness, something soft and unspoken bloomed in my chest. After a brief hesitation, I let out a quiet sigh and finally lay down beside him. Half awake, I vaguely felt the blanket being tugged up, then a warm embrace wrapping around me. But I was too tired, my eyelids heavy and unyielding, and soon slipped into deeper sleep. I woke up around 8. George Washington was already gone. In the living room, I found a neatly arranged breakfast on the table, next to a sticky note. Don't forget breakfast, I had an 8 a.m. class. Red heart. The hand-drawn heart at the end made my lips curve into a smile before I even realized it. I tucked the note carefully into the drawer beside my bed. After eating, I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls and texts from an unfamiliar number had flooded in sometime after midnight. When I opened the messages, I instantly knew who it was. Boris Owen. Apologies. Explanations about the engagement. A desperate attempt to reach me. That's when I realized he'd had another number all along. One he never told me about. I blocked it too. Then I opened up my social feed. The likes and comments on last night's post had doubled. One by one I read through them. And once again, the blessings far outweighed the doubts. I replied to the newest ones. When I arrived at the cafe, Aiden Mallison and Carol Harrison were already busy. The moment they saw me, they both shot me knowing glances and teasing smiles. Carol smirked. Brandon, I thought George was just messing around. Can't believe he actually chased you down. Kid's got good taste. Aiden added, the best part is, he actually caught you. I thought of the night ride, the street food, the laughter. Nice, I said softly. They instantly went full gossip mode, squinting, snickering, clearly dying to dig deeper. I couldn't handle it, so I put on my boss face. Enough chatter. Get back to work. Aiden made a sandwich and handed me a slice of mousse cake. Table 7. Got it. I picked up the tray and turned to head that way. And then I saw the one person I least wanted to see right now. After 3 years together, Boris Owen had never once set foot in my cafe. Until today. I glanced back toward Aiden and Carol, who were busy at the counter, then braced myself and walked toward the table. Table 7 was tucked in the window corner, the perfect vantage point to see the whole shop and everyone inside. Which meant he'd seen me the moment I walked in. Brandon Franklin, he said. I want to talk. I don't, I replied flatly, setting the tray down and turning to leave. He stood up abruptly, voice laced with desperation. Brandon, I know I messed up. Please, give me another chance. There weren't many customers around. Most had taken their coffee to go or were waiting for delivery. But now, those few people looked over, curious. Aiden and Carol froze at the counter, wide-eyed. I raised a brow and let out a dry laugh. Not afraid to be seen as gay anymore? His knuckles flexed, curling, uncurling. Then silence. A few seconds passed, stretching far too long. Finally, he took a breath, as if trying to clear his mind. I'm not afraid of anything, he said, voice low but clear. Not if I'm with you. If he had said that yesterday, maybe I would have cried. Maybe I would have felt joy at finally being allowed into the light. But today, hearing those words, it didn't move me. It felt ironic, like the final act of a tragic farce. And frankly, it annoyed me. You're too late, I said calmly. And I hope you don't show up here again. After Boris left, Aiden and Carol kept sneaking glances at me. Their faces were practically begging me to let them speak. I sighed. If you've got questions, ask. They swarmed over immediately. Brandon, who was that guy? My ex. Both of them gawked, exchanging shocked looks. You never told us. When did this happen? We all thought you were single. We were together for 3 years. We broke up yesterday. Wait, what? Was it because of George? No. He cheated. George only confessed after we split. George had shown up at the perfect moment. If he'd come earlier, I would have rejected him. I already had a boyfriend. If he'd waited longer, I might have shut down, armored myself in numbness, or even grown used to being alone. We would have missed each other completely. Around noon, George came rushing in like a small tornado. He was grinning. Brandon, I'm here for lunch. I smiled. Okay. Aiden and Carol immediately began making exaggerated faces behind him. George hesitated. His eyes flicked between them, lips pressing together. Then he sighed. Let's all eat together. So he'd already accepted that Aiden and Carol were our very persistent third and fourth wheels. They both rolled their eyes at him in perfect sync. I chuckled. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Aiden nudging George and whispering something quickly before they both drifted off to plot in private. George Washington leaned in toward me with a grin. Brandon, what do you want for lunch? Western food? Italian? Barbecue? I looked up at him. Staff meal. He didn't miss a beat, nodded solemnly like he was taking an oath. As the boss's family, I think staff meal sounds just right. Aiden Mallison and Carol Harrison couldn't hold it anymore and burst out laughing. I tried, really tried, to suppress the smile tugging at my lips, but it had a mind of its own. Before I knew it, it was back again, warm and sneaky. That evening, George and I had dinner at a small private kitchen-style restaurant. Afterward, we strolled along the sidewalk, hand in hand. Even when a few people stared, George walked with complete ease. In fact, he looked a little proud. I glanced at him. Ever been in a relationship before? Nope. You're my first love. He was still in college, so that wasn't shocking. But did he even know for sure he liked men? He caught my look. Brandon, why are you looking at me like that? I was just thinking, we've only met a handful of times. When did you start liking me? He looked into my eyes, gaze deep and steady, but with a kindling spark beneath. It made my chest tighten involuntarily. Since the day I started college, he said. It's been over 2 years now. What? I blinked, stunned. He'd had a crush on me for 2 years? I tried to recall when I first noticed him. No specific date came to mind. He just became a regular at the cafe one day. I'm a local, he explained. I came to check in at school by myself that day. The traffic was insane near campus, so I got off early at the corner. Then it started pouring and the wheel on my suitcase broke. I was pissed. Completely soaked. Everything was a mess. And that's when you showed up. You offered to drive me to campus, gave me a mini tour of the university town. I thought hard. I did vaguely remember helping a freshman that day. It was move-in season, and the freshmen were easy to spot if you lived around long enough. You were that student? That's surprised. Back then, it had been just a small gesture. I didn't even look at his face properly. He nodded enthusiastically. That was me. I recognized you the moment I walked into your cafe afterward. I opened my mouth but couldn't form a full sentence. I'm serious about you, Brandon, he said quietly, sincerely. We walked in step beneath the streetlights, our shadows stretching and shrinking along the pavement. George did most of the talking, sharing the secret sweetness of his long-held crush, the joy he felt now that we were together. Being loved, it was a nice feeling. I squeezed his hand a little tighter, but he didn't seem content with just holding hands anymore. He leaned in. We were close enough to feel each other's breath. A slight tilt of his head, and his lips brushed against mine. I kissed him. But George, always competitive, tried to steal the lead. Bold, clumsy, a little wild. When we finally broke apart, our breathing was shallow, our heartbeats loud in the silence. I checked the time. Your dorm must be closing soon. George gave me the most pitiful look. Brandon, you said yesterday you'd register my fingerprint. I braced myself to gently tell him to go back. But he lowered his head, lashes casting shadows under the glow of the street lamp. His eyes were shimmering like misty glass, glinting faintly. My throat tightened. The words caught there, never made it out. I nodded instead. His joy was instant and visible. We walked back together, slower now. His mood was noticeably lighter, a spring in his step. We didn't even realize how close we were to the building, until Boris Owen stepped out from the shadows. He looked wrecked, drained. His face sagged with exhaustion, hair a mess, and the bitter smell of alcohol clung to him. I dropped my smile and watched him warily. He gave a dry chuckle, not sure if he was mocking us or himself. Brandon Franklin, he said. Can I talk to you? Alone. I don't keep secrets from my boyfriend, I replied flatly. Say whatever you want. He can hear it too. Boris stared at me, eyes unreadable. I took George's hand and turned to go. "I'll be here," Boris called after us. "I'll wait until you're willing to talk." George leaned in and whispered, "I'll head up first." I thought for a moment, then nodded. "I'll text you the new code." I had changed the passcode that morning and deleted Boris's fingerprint from the lock system. George looked at the message on his phone, lips curling slightly, and headed upstairs. Boris laughed again, softer this time. I could finally hear the self-mockery in it. "Brandon Franklin," he said quietly, "I really did love you. Everything, those dates, the engagement, it was all for my family. On my birthday, yeah, I said something awful. But there were others around. Friends who didn't know, and Ivy came with me to Grand Royal. I had to introduce her. I panicked and said something I didn't mean." He paused. "I never, ever thought of you as something to just play with. I came out to my parents," Boris said, "told them I like men. I also called off the engagement with Ivy. They're still adjusting, but they promised to try, to respect my decisions." My voice was calm. "That's good. Congrats on taking the first step." These past few days had been an emotional roller coaster. But once the chaos settled, I found no sadness, no resentment in me. Just a quiet, unexpected peace. And above all else, a deep sense of release. Boris's face paled. His shoulders sagged. After a long silence, he whispered, "So, there's really no chance for us anymore?" "There isn't," I answered without hesitation. He wavered, stumbling back a step, looking like he might collapse at any moment. And though I was someone who softened easily, I'd learned, you can't afford to soften for everyone. So I turned around and walked away, without sparing him a final glance. As soon as I stepped inside, George Washington rushed at me, pulling me into his arms, burying his face in the crook of my neck. "Brandon." I patted his back, letting him hold me for as long as he needed. "He won't come back, right?" "He shouldn't. And even if he does, I won't respond." George's voice was muffled. "You were with him for 3 years. We've only been together for barely 3 days. I'm scared, Brandon." "You don't need to be," I said with a smile. "Didn't you say you've been into me for over 2 years already?" "That still doesn't compare to 3 years. But it's fine. We'll have plenty of our 3 years from now on." He lifted his chin slightly, exhaling through his nose in that smug way he always did. I laughed. What else could I do? I was the one who agreed to date him. Might as well spoil him properly. That weekend, I brought George along to meet my old friends. Introduced him as my boyfriend. They already knew I was dating someone, but when we arrived, their stunned expressions were still priceless. Nervously, I gripped George's hand tighter. Thankfully, once the initial surprise passed, they welcomed us with warm smiles and light teasing. "Damn, Brandon Franklin. You really scored yourself a cute one." Back in school, Brandon was basically legendary. How was he still single for so long? I was even planning to introduce my cousin to him. She's going to cry now. "Hey, can I get introduced instead? I'm single too." Get lost. Amid the laughter and banter, I finally exhaled, relieved. There was no judgment in their gaze. Only jokes, kindness, and genuine well-wishes. The one friend who did know about Boris leaned in and said quietly, "He suits you better than Boris ever did." I couldn't help but smile. Yeah, being able to love someone openly, being surrounded by friends who accepted and supported me, it was everything I used to long for. And now it was real. George Washington's POV. Whenever I had a free moment, I'd wander around the university district, hoping, somehow, I might see him again. Then one day, a dorm mate asked me to pick up a coffee for him. I ducked into a nearby cafe. And there he was. The man I hadn't been able to forget. Standing right in front of me. My heart stuttered. Turns out, we were never that far apart. I immediately cursed myself. Why hadn't I been into coffee sooner? From that day forward, I visited that cafe every single day. Eventually, I became a regular. I first got to know Aiden Mallison. Then his girlfriend, Carol Harrison. They'd both been working there for over a year. From them, I learned his name, Brandon Franklin. And I learned he was single. That one piece of information felt like someone had thrown a boulder into a still lake inside me. Ripples, chaos, zero self-control. I wanted to pursue him. So I started showing up more, making small talk, making sure he'd remember me. From Aiden and Carol, I secretly learned all his likes and dislikes. And once they caught on to my intentions, I just told them the truth. I liked Brandon. A lot. And I needed their help. I was getting ready to confess. Then I saw him on what looked like a date with another man. I held it together that night. But the calmer I was, the less I wanted to give up. I had someone look into the guy. And boom, cracks showed immediately. His name? Boris Owen. And he'd been going on arranged dates behind Brandon's back. But how could I tell Brandon? That's when I found out one of Boris's blind dates, Ivy Christine, was a former student from my department. It took some work, but I got her contact info. She was kind, enthusiastic. When I explained that a friend of mine was being strung along by a jerk, she agreed to help. On Boris's birthday, Ivy clung to him deliberately and followed him to Grand Royal for his party. She used his phone to send Brandon the location and the private room number, then deleted the messages. I waited near Grand Royal. I saw Brandon arrive with my own eyes. Once he entered the building, I left to avoid being spotted. Later, Ivy let me know what direction he left in, and I made my move. Took him for a ride. Told him how I felt. And he said yes. I hadn't expected Boris to come crawling back after that. But when Ivy came out of the room, I knew exactly what had happened. Brandon. He's the type who gets soft easily. All I ever had to do was act a little pitiful and he'd cave. Every time. It always worked. Still, those few days, I was anxious, unsure, until he brought me to that friend gathering. It wasn't just that he introduced me. It was that he brought me into his circle, into the world he once kept so private. He'd been in the shadows of a secret relationship for 3 years. And now, he was holding my hand in the light. That meant everything. Later, Ivy told me she dumped Boris. After that, he came out to his family, then moved away. The farther, the better. I hoped I'd never have to see him again. Oh, and the gift Brandon got for Boris? Still sitting in the drawer by the entrance. The entrance, that's where you leave things that don't matter. Meanwhile, my sticky notes? He keeps those in the drawer by his bed. I'm still wondering how to get those cufflinks out of the house and out of our lives for good. The end.